Well, football is out, baseball is in. Spring training is getting closer and closer.
Not a lot of Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady conversation going to happen today, but a lot of Curtis Mead, Isaac Paredes, Yandy Diaz at first base. Aranda, let's get started right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we're the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Locked On Rays. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays, and you can email us anytime, lockedonrays@gmail.com. Pitchers and catchers report this week. Workouts begin at Charlotte Sports Park this week as well. It is basically here, spring training season, baseball season, and all that. And with that, we figured let's do some positional previews, going around the diamond and discussing, breaking down, looking at who are the candidates for playing time for each respective position. And that's what we're going to do today, starting with first baseman.
That's right. I think it should be a fun way to kind of preview spring training, to do like a series on all these competitions, because there are names that are solid. I'm pretty sure Randy Rosarena is a solid guy that's going to see us. It's going to see a lot of playing time, but there are some competitions in spring training, not only because of guys trying to make their way into the majors, but also because if a big trade happens, then it could shift the roles of some players that are already in the 26 man.
Right. That's fair. So let's get right into it here. The candidates for first base. I have three primary candidates. And Ulises, if you disagree with me, let me know. I have, of course, one, Yandy Diaz, who MLB Network has ranked as the number 5 first baseman in the league, sandwiched between Paul Goldschmidt and Pete Alonso. Pretty good company to be a part of there. And then I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later on, the playing time aspect, but more or less fighting for the scraps, if you will, of that position, Isaac Paredes and Jonathan Aranda.
I think that's solid. I think that's solid. I think those are the main three. I would sneak in a Curtis Mead.
Okay, so Curtis Mead is not your dark horse candidate. He is going to be listed as a primary candidate for you. So 4 candidates to get action at first base over the course of 2024.
Fair,
or are you
fair
going
enough.
to flip-flop Curtis Mead with a Jonathan Aranda?
No. Okay. Then if we're doing it that way, then yeah, that would be my dark horse pick, would be Curtis Mead. But I just feel like when. By the way, well, let's establish a standard here.
Okay.
This is pending a Harold Ramirez trade, because I feel like if we don't go from that point in time, then this conversation is all in incredibly hypotheticals, because then it would just, those guys are not getting at bats if Harold Ramirez is on the roster. So I feel
If
like
Harold Ramirez is on the roster, he takes a lot of the DH at bats and maybe a handful of action at first base as well. He did play 6 games at first base in 2023.
exactly. So we have to, I think, start with that premise of, if Harold Ramirez is traded, this is what we think is going to happen. So if that's what's going to happen, then Yandy Diaz, Jonathan Aranda, and Isaac Paredes are going to get the bulk. You're correct.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds of Harold Ramirez being traded in the next several weeks? One being no, he 100% will be with the Rays. 10 being, yeah, the minute that he wins his arbitration case, that he's a goner.
I mean, every moment that passes by, the odds just get, smaller and smaller. So I think the fact that it's February 12th, and very early in the morning, and it hasn't happened yet, I'm gonna go with a 4.
4. So almost right in the middle. but more likely to stick around.
I think he's more likely to stick around. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
can trades happen? Of course, but it's gotta happen. And I don't think the Rays really want to get nothing for Harold Ramirez. Like,
Right.
this guy is a master of left-handed pitching. Like, this is a positive guy to have in your clubhouse. Like, this is an asset. So the problem with the Rays is that you guys have so many players that are ready to make that jump, to make that
Right.
leap to the major league roster, that he's kind of blocking them. But if the Rays didn't have that issue, we would all be happy with Harold Ramirez getting some playing time.
Yes, that is fair. On the other side of the coin, which we'll get into a little bit, is you do have myriad young players like Jonathan Aranda, like Curtis Mead, who are knocking at the door. And yeah, you can keep them in AAA, I suppose, but what more else is there to prove there? At some point, you got to get them action and get them reps. And if Harold Ramirez is holding them back and you don't see Harold Ramirez as a long-term answer, then maybe this is the year, this is the time to move that guy and see what you have in Mead and Aranda respectively. So it'll be an interesting discussion and what may or may not happen. I'll say this, maybe that the Rays kind of hold on to him a little bit and wait to see if there's some movement with additional free agent signings over the course of spring training, or if a player gets injured or something with another organization, that might be the time to pull the trigger and make the trade there. I don't think they're necessarily in a rush to move him, but they might be somewhat actively shopping him around, or definitely listening to any and all offers there. So
that might be actually what's going to happen. They might just have to hold him until they can pull the trigger. And when you mention injuries, it's not only like, oh, the Rockies need a guy or the Dodgers need a guy. Like, it could also be like, oof, player X from our team just got hurt and he's gonna miss 6 weeks. Like, and we just traded Harold Ramirez. Damn.
Right.
Like,
yeah, maybe they want to wait until they get into late March before making that determination there. That is very, very possible. Yeah. Injuries do happen all the time and in spring training as well. We have more to discuss on this for sure, but first, we have to tell you this. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players with teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, and shoot your shot today. I'll repeat it again. FanDuel.com/lockedon is the place to go. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Now, as far as the percentage played and how the playing time will be distributed across this position, just for context purposes, Yandy Diaz played in 2023 118 games at the position. Isaac Paredes played 25 games at the position. Jonathan Aranda played 12 games at the position. And we should note this little wild card thrown out. Luke Raley played 35 games at the position last year. He was traded up, so that could open up some more opportunities for Aranda, Paredes, and or somebody else. And we also have to keep this in mind with Yandy. On an average year, or a year where he's semi-healthy, max you are probably going to get from him is 134 to 137 games played in a season. And you could basically take 20 of those games out for DH purposes. So there's some playing time to be at here. I would say Yandy Diaz, the bulk, 75, 80% of the action, and then you infill it from there with other candidates.
I feel like the conversation has to start with Yandy. Like, how healthy are you? Do you obviously players like playing more than just being DH. Like, that's just normal. Right. They want to be on the field. But if Yandy can make that transition of like to the DH spot without that much of an issue and keep his production up and keep him healthy and keep him in the lineup, Then let's say you're opening up from those 118 games that he played. Let's say something drastic. Let's say that half of those games are only played now in first base. So you go from 118, so let's just do 120. So now he plays 60 games at first base. And then the other half he plays in as a DH, then gets rest or whatever. You're opening like a ton of opportunities. And you said Luke Raley as a lefty. I mean, against right-handed pitching, I know Aranda hasn't done much, but he's the guy there. 247 average, a 107 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. He should be taking most of the at-bats against right-handed pitching at first base. Either you move Yandy to DH, or maybe Yandy has an off day, but that should be the move there if you want to get Jonathan Aranda at-bats. It would be against right-handed pitching, and that's a chunk, Kev. Like, that's the larger side of the platoon, so he's going to get a lot of opportunities to see if he's able to translate those amazing numbers, offensive numbers from the minors to the majors with an actual opportunity.
And the question also has to be, is he up for the role defensively as well? Because there also has to be something to that where it's not just you're sticking the most unathletic guy at first base. Again, when a lefty's up to bat, first base is basically the hot corner. Can you field ground balls to the fair side? Can you make sure that the second baseman, shortstop, and third baseman are comfortable and confident in making their throws, and they don't have to think that extra half second or second to make sure it's totally, completely accurate at the chest? You just want them to come up firing, and that you're going to snag that ball, whether it's high, low, left, right, short hop, long hop, whatever it is. So there, I would imagine, have to be a lot of work in spring training to kind of see where he's at the position.
Definitely. Maybe I'm a bit of a this might be a bit of a boomer take, but if you look at Ji-Man Choi, we all love Ji-Man Choi.
Splits.
But exactly. But if we go back to the conversation late 2018 and early 2019, when it seemed like, Ji-Man Choi is going to win the spot at first base, nobody was happy about that. Everybody was like, oh man, can he field it? Now, we all ended up really liking what Choi did at first, but the defensive metrics are not very kind to him at first base. They're really not. The defensive war is not really there being happy with Ji-Man Choi at first base. So there has to be that. I feel like if the Rays were able to put a guy that had not great metrics at first base, but raked, if Jonathan Aranda rakes more than Choi, I think they would be more than happy to stick him at first base, because, with second or third, it could get even more problematic. Like, the offensive output would have to be larger because of the error situation being larger in those positions than in first base. So I understand that you need to pick it. That you need to be a big target. So big guys usually would do well. If you have long extremities, you do even better. But
unless you're Jose Martinez.
Unless you're Jose Martinez, then you're just not going to catch anything unless it's like right in your chest. But I feel like defensive prowess matters at first base. Of course it does. But after seeing Ji-Man Choi there for 3-4 years and having the bad defensive metrics, maybe it's not that important to them.
Now, say that Yandy Diaz it's a lunar eclipse and he's healthy for 160 games, 155 games. How many games, if you're Kevin Cash, would you put him at first base versus DH?
That's the conversation, right? In the beginning, like, how comfortable are you? And then let's just try you at DH. Yeah. Like, and if you're still hitting 300, you're driving in runs, you're getting on base, 400 clip, OPS over 800. Bro, what? Yeah. I mean, let's keep you healthy. Like, let's keep you in a position where you don't have to dive on the hard turf or the ground.
But maybe he likes the action at first base to keep him engaged in the game. I would just like
that's the conversation that needs to happen.
Just like a conversation with Zach Eflin of, how do you feel about a 6-man rotation? And if he's like, nah, not really feeling it, then
Yes.
maybe you move off of it. Whereas with Yandy, or similarly with Yandy, if you say, hey, how do you feel about DHing twice a week, or more these next couple of weeks, or just more in general? And he's like, no, I like playing first base. Then you allow your MVP voting player, vote getter, whatever you can do to make him happy and content and satisfied. I wouldn't do anything to hurt Yandy just to open up at bats and playing time for Jonathan Aranda.
100%. And I love the Zach Eflin comp. That's exactly the kind of conversation that needs to happen. Like, he's your guy, so you're gonna have to talk to him and be like, hey, how comfortable are you in the DH spot? And if he says yes, then that could really open up some very interesting options, because you have the possibility of, okay, against right-handed pitching, we go to Jonathan Aranda at first base. That way we can move Yandy to DH. And if that's not the case, if it's let's say if it's a lefty on the mound, either you have Yandy at first, or hey, it's a rest day, or hey, it's a DH day for Yandy. Then you put Isaac at first, and then now you open a third base position for, is Caminero on the lineup? Is Taylor Wallace coming back, so he's at shortstop, and then you can move Caballero at third base? Is Curtis Mead the option, because Caminero is in the minor still getting seasoned, so Curtis Mead is on the roster, so you can open third base for him. Like, Yandy Diaz being an effective offensive production guy in the lineup as a DH can really do wonders for what you can do with the corners.
Oh, for sure. And we haven't really mentioned him much, but Isaac Paredes did play 25 games at first base in 2023. If I had to guess, I would think that the Rays probably want to more so focus him at second base and third base. Just like in with Yandy Diaz, he played 6 games at third base last year. I think that'll probably be 0 or 1 or 2. I think this is the year where Yandy's more or less done with third base, and then it's a first base DH conversation for him. So that also has to be factored into the equation, because you want to not take a hit defensively and still give Isaac Paredes as many opportunities as possible offensively as well. I think that's a big contributing factor to all this.
And we said in his player review for Isaac that although he wasn't awful at third base, it wasn't like he was lighting up the defensive metrics. You know, he was like right in the middle. So could you get away with maybe improving his metrics if he's at second base, if he's at first base? Again, like you could look at this, so many options. If you free the two big questions is Harold Ramirez, traded or not. And then that opens up a whole big thing. And then if Yandy Diaz can be as good a hitter during being a DH than at first base, it opens up the floodgates, man, because now you can do so much. And I don't know, is this something you can do during spring training? Because during spring training, it's so lackadaisical. Like, you guys get your 2 at-bats and then you're gone. Like, can you really take spring training and be, hey, Yandy, we're just going to like DH you for the next 2 weeks and that's it. That's all you're going to do. Like, can you really do that to prepare somebody for that role like that?
Maybe. I mean, I would think this is the year to really kind of toy with things and see what works, see what doesn't, and really give, maybe a longer leash to Jonathan Aranda, at least getting some reps in action at the position. Maybe it's getting there earlier for practice, staying later after games for getting more reps there to kind of see where he's at, and then making a decision from there. So again, I'm all about asking, hey, Yandy, what are you comfortable? What is something that's, too far out there where you're not really with that, or can you work with us on this thing versus that thing? I think getting his input will be key going forward. We have, in addition to these 3 main candidates, there are a dark horse candidate or candidates out there. We'll get to those, but first, Ulises, we have to tell the audience about something important.
That's right. Just like we are talking about what can make the first base competition even better. Well, guess what? You can make your car better with eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. eBay Motor has got you covered. with over 122 million parts for your number one ride. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time. Or guess what? Your money back. That'd be great if the first base competition worked like that. Hey, you're not really giving me a lot of production, so let's take those games back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, and you can keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. You can just keep your car into the MVP that you want and deserve in your garage. So again, go to ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers.
Okay, as far as dark horse candidates for the position, I have two. Curtis Mead, Austin Shenton.
Ooh, you have been on an Austin Shenton train. I feel like if Austin Shenton makes a splash, I think people should give you props for that. In fact, maybe we should reach out and have him on the show.
Yeah, we might have to do that. The Rays did, and maybe this was in part to other guys as well. They traded Kyle Manzardo for a reason. There was too much of a glut anyway. There were a lot of guys, and maybe they wanted to say, hey, we're comfortable deep into the depth chart with giving Austin Shenton an opportunity. And just like Jonathan Aranda, there's really not much more he can do or prove at the AAA level. He slugged 600 and at a 1.0 OPS. I know there's been some injury issues over the course of his career, but based on last year, he's pretty much ready. He's 25, 26 years old as well. And I mean, kind of a nick on him, their scouting reports say there's really not another position suited for him based on his heavy, stiff nature. So I would give a nod to him. Also just added to the 40-man roster. So the Rays like a little something about his gameplay there. And then Curtis Mead too. I think that there's other better defensive candidates at second and third, although that's where he spent a lot of his time. And I know that Mead doesn't really have the strongest arm, and he's 6'2", 6'3", good size. So maybe that's something that you can work him in as, hey, let's try you in left field, let's try you in first base, see what really sticks for you. So that's what I think.
I think with Curtis Mead, they know that it'll play if given the opportunity. They know that it'll play. It's just, where can we stick you with the glove? In the minors, that again, when we had him on the show last, he said third base, second base, first base. That's the order where he feels most comfortable and where he has played the most, which makes sense. Where you play the most, you're going to feel more comfortable. So he feels more comfortable third, then second, and then at first. But the Topkin article, by the way, that came out last week, did mention something very interesting. It said something about shortstop, maybe trying him there. Apparently, Isaac didn't like shortstop, even though he did play it for a game last year. He didn't really like it, but that Curtis Mead could be an option there. And when you look at the roster, dude, and after Caballero, like, let's focus in on opening day. We know Taylor Walsh is not going to be there. The fact is that Mead could be a solution there, because you're not going to stick around there, and you're not going to, you could do Aranda, but I mean, if you're already not trusting him in second base, why would you trust him with shortstop?
I guess some of this stuff depends on the shifts and how you shift guys around as well. But I don't think Aranda's not a shortstop. He's not.
No, I don't see it. So then Mead is kind of like the guy left standing now. A lot of people are now clamoring, of course, on the keyboard saying Ulises Basabe. How about Ulises Basabe? Right. But I think you need a little bit more bats in the lineup, and Mead can give you that. So if he's available in the roster, then first base would be an option where he could see some at bats when Yandy gets a rest day. When Yandy is a DH, he can be there. Or guess what? Hey, Yandy, you take first base. Curtis Mead, you take DH. Like, it's not great to have a young player come up and just be a DH. That's not suitable. That's not perfect, best case scenario. But if the at-bats are there, why not?
Yeah. And we'll have to save all that for the shortstop positional preview episode. But in addition to thinking about the shifts, also the type of pitcher that you have on the mound as well. Is it a guy who just strikes out everybody? Is it a guy who creates a lot of fly balls versus a guy who's, there's going to be a lot of hard ground balls coming to you? Are you going to be ready and prepared for that? I think all that has to be taken into the equation in the math on whether you're going to start Curtis Mead or give Curtis Mead some playing time at that position. And again, some of this isn't necessarily about a guy. He starts the game at short or first and ends the game at short first. There's a lot of substitutions that we have to consider and think about it as well. Maybe Yandy Diaz plays 6-7 innings at first base, and then Jonathan Aranda gets subbed in to that position, and Yandy goes in DHs for the last couple innings, whatever it may be. So those are some of the dark horse candidates. Real dark horse candidate. Isaac, not Paredes, but Xavier, Isaac. Scale of 1 to 10 that he gets an at-bat in the majors this year. 10
0.
being yes, he will. 1 being absolutely not.
0. There is no chance. No, like a friend of the pod, David Sampson would say, no chance, toilet pants.
Yes.
It ain't happening.
Yeah. As much as he looked great in A-ball, just turned 20 years old, there's still a lot to be developed with him. But he's going to be, I think, an exciting guy.
Of course. What would you also rate that 1 to 10?
1.
Okay, yeah.
It's
just he's just too far away, and there's a lot of options. Like you just said it, a few minutes ago with the Colmanzardo trade. If they were willing to get to ship off Kyle, they knew this was happening. Like they knew the depth. Like they knew they have Diaz, Aranda, Paredes, Curtis Mead as an option, and then there's more guys like Shenton, Edwards, in AAA. So they've got plenty of options. It would be. I think something catastrophic would have to happen for Xavier to get an at-bat in 2024.
Okay, so we've talked about in first base history with the Rays organization, Yandy Diaz, of course, G-Man Choi. Can you name 5 other primary opening day first basemen in Rays history? So going back to 2000.
Casey Kochman.
Correct. 1 year. Yeah.
Carlos Pena.
Yep. 5 years.
Kelly Johnson.
He is not on this list, but good guess.
Okay. James Loney.
Correct. 3 years.
And who am I missing? Am I missing like some Brad Miller type guy?
In a way.
Logan Morrison,
and there's one guy who had a lot of hype and was supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I believe he was involved in a Yandy Diaz transaction.
Oh, Jake Bowers.
Yep. Those are the other guys there.
Man, like this. Okay, just to wrap it up, guys. It's very awesome to like get hyped up about names and all that, and this guy and this guy and this guy. You have to also keep your feet on the ground and just remember stuff like Jake Bowers. Yeah, like that. He was going to be the next thing, man, and we were going to have him and Willie Adames just right into the sunset with a couple championships, and it didn't happen. So just remember that
why should we be thinking about the next best thing when we have Yandy Diaz on the roster? Let's enjoy the moment there.
Let's enjoy and let's hope look. I just want him to be healthy. If he is able to again play 130, 140 games, that's a W. The production will be there. However, it splits up between first base and DH. Hopefully it's 50-50 so he can get the rest that he needs, and then it opens up possibilities. I think we both now have basically stated Jonathan Aranda is the greatest beneficiary if Harold is traded. And if Yandy is able to transition 50% of the time or some chunk of the time to the DH role.
Yes. Assuming that Isaac Paredes gets plenty of work at other positions for sure. All right. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.